else you've done.
Okay. I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, November 29th Site Plan Review and Appearance Board regular meeting. Diane, can you please call the roll?
Annette Gray,
Here.
Jose Alvarez,
Here.
Linda Perdeau,
Here.
Keith Beal absent, Stephen Cohen,
Here.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
And so the need to have an approval of the agenda. Technically, it's listed after the election, so we'll have two amendments that staff has told me about. One, please, approval agenda needs to be before the elections, and then item 9B for 354 Southeast 5th Avenue is requested a postponement. Is there any additional changes to the agenda, staff?
No.
Board members, any changes to the agenda you'd propose?
No.
Okay, if I can get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, so the next item will be the election of officers. The way this process will work, we'll begin with the chair, followed by vice chair and second vice chair. I'll ask for any nominations. A nomination needs to be seconded. Then I'll ask if there's any additional nominations, and then depending on how many individuals are nominated, we'll discuss the voting process. So we'll begin the election officers with the chair. Oh, and as a reminder, Ms. Adler and Mr. Beal, even though they're absent, are eligible to be nominated for any of the officer positions. So do I have any nominations for chair?
Dana Adler.
Is there?
Second.
Great. Are there any additional nominations for chair? Okay, Diane, can you please call the roll?
Who made the second?
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, do I have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Annette Gray.
Is there a second to that
Second.
nomination? Okay. Are there any additional nominations? Ms. Miller, can you please read the roll?
Do we have a second?
I did.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I couldn't.
Linda.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
And do I have any nominations for second vice chair?
Stephen Cohen. Second.
Any additional nominations? Ms. Miller, can you please call the roll?
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Hey, congratulations, board members. Diane, you need, I guess it'd be Ms. Gray to take the chair position, so Mr. Cohen and Ms. Gray would just flip-flop.
Right, right.
Okay. You want?
And we'll give Diane just a minute to put the name tags up, but otherwise, Ms. Gray, the board is now yours.
Alrighty. I haven't touched it. And if you have a paper copy of the agenda, a paper copy of the agenda? Yes. Thank you. Do we have any minutes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
We have the minutes of October 25th for the board approval.
All right, so we are at item 5. Can I get a motion if there are no modifications to the minutes?
A motion to accept the minutes of October 25th, 2023.
Do I have a second? Second. Do I have a first and a
Give me a
second?
minute.
No problem.
So who made the motion? Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
And the second?
It was Ms. Perdue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and item number 6 is swearing.
We actually need, Diane will do the roll
Call
call
the
for
roll.
that. Yep.
Patience for us tonight, please. Thank you.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdue,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, now, if there is anyone here who will be speaking on tonight's agenda, do I have to read this entire quasi-judicial rules?
We will, but we can do the swearing in. Finish that process first.
All right.
So-
Anyone here today that who will be, it's in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules, the applicants of the city shall be permitted to present their case.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And item number 7, is there anyone in the audience today that would like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? You have 3 minutes to do so, and you can do that at the podium. Is there a podium to my left?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Do we have any presentations?
None. So now we're moving to quasi-judicial items. You can read the quasi-judicial rules.
This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The city, commission, board, members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer a rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or an appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the number of citizens who support or oppose the particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of the law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. Okay, so that brings us to item 9A. And we have, who's presenting that item? Lynn? Will we introduce it for the city, please?
Yes, so I'll state for the record, my name is Susie Rodriguez and I'm a planner for Delray Beach. I would like to enter file number 2023-199 into the record. This is for agenda item 9A, which is a level 2 site plan modification for 310 East Atlantic Avenue. The applicant is here today to present.
And do we have any ex parte communication among the board members?
No.
None with me either. Okay, and Mr. Steve Myatt.
Steve Myatt, 639 East Ocean Avenue, Suite 403, Boynton Beach. I'm the architect for the Leyland Group, who is presenting a renovation plan to your board tonight. And this is our third appearance. We've been to City Commission. We've been here before. We've also renovated the rear of the building already and have permits in place for the interior renovation. So this is the third and the final phase. And so it is a level 2, and we have about 5,700 square feet there. The building will remain as 2 retail bays. The primary change is removal of a outdated roof structure in the front, and then all new materials, windows, entries, etc., to the front. And as I mentioned, we've achieved our waiver approval from DDA and SPRAB and the Commission. So let's see. There we go. This is the site location. You can see we're just east of the tracks. On the east side of us is Boulefait, which is probably a historically significant building, and on the west side is Urban Outfitters, which is a more brutal contemporary building right across the street from Johnny Brown's, just east of the tracks. Currently, it's 2 retail stores. Tootsie's a shoe store, and Coconut's a bathing suit store. And on the left is our plan, which shows the new glazing that is approximately 10 foot tall to reflect a transom glass design. It's pretty much glazed all the way across. The entries are recessed, which is something we worked through with the commission and the zoning department, and we're very pleased with the way that it's turning out. We see it as a transitional type design between the 2 different architectural styles that are on either side. We think the Boulefait building is a more significant building, and so we've kind of backed our awnings off of it and made them rather inconspicuous compared to what's there now. And and we have used some masonry on our sign band but in a much different color to tie that together. These are our finishes that we have. It's rather, I would say they're understated. There's a section there on the left which shows the scale of the building and the recess of the entry, and the setbacks of it. And this is our rendering. It shows the completed structure there. Oops. You helping me, Susie? There we go. Thank you. And so we think that it does reflect a good balance between the historic structure to our east and the contemporary structure to our west, given nice sign locations to potential tenants there, which will be attractive to good stores, and that's about it. It's fairly simple. We think it's a clean design, and we hope that you like it. If you have any questions, just let me know.
So just to note, the waiver was reviewed prior to ordinance number 3123, so the site plan will be reviewed with the regulations set forth in the new ordinance. 3123. These changes pertain solely to the processing procedures and do not alter the criteria of the approval. The property is zoned CBD and within the Central Core Subdistrict. Its current use is consisting of 2 retail bays, and it fronts a primary street, Atlantic Avenue. The 5,752 square foot structure was built in 1940. The architectural style was masonry vernacular, which is consistent with the Main Street vernacular style. On October 17th, 2023, the City Commission approved resolution number 189-23, which was a waiver to reduce the front setback from 10 feet to 3.3 feet, with the condition that the entrance doors were inset for each retail bay at least 3 feet from the primary storefront facade. The request includes aligning the building facade with neighboring structures, and each bay is provided with those individual doors that are inset the 3 feet. And also, it includes new storefront glass, 1 foot tall gray tiles as the storefront base, a smooth white stucco along the edge in the center, a scored gray stucco to resemble brick for the parapet, and the parapet is lowered to its previous historic height. It's also replacing that existing canopy with metal awning just above each bay, and the proposed style is consistent with the Main Street vernacular style. Also note the signage is not included in this review. The level 2 requires compliance with the performance standards in chapter 3. So the zoning is consistent with the land use, and the requested modifications pose no significant impact with the concurrencies. The proposed design is not anticipated to create unwarranted distractions, and the modifications of the facade are within the parameters of the CBD regulations. In regards to the CBD regulations, the proposed height of 18 feet and 6 inches after lowering the parapet do meet the required minimum of 18 feet. The front setback of 3.3 feet has been approved by City Commission, and the proposed curb zone is 4 feet 6 inches. The pedestrian zone is 6 feet, totaling to a minimum streetscape which ranges between 13.8 feet to 16.8 feet, which was also reviewed during the waiver approval with the condition that the doors were inset. The storefront frontage type standards have been met. The awning extends 0.7 feet into the public right-of-way, and a hold harmless has been attained. The minimum requirements for architectural elevations found in 4618A. The modifications must show proper design concepts and be appropriate with its surroundings. Also, the following criteria must be met. The proposed modification must be in good taste and design. It should contribute to the image of the city, and the exterior design shall not materially depreciate the appearance and value of the area, and the proposal is in harmony with the overall general area. The proposal incorporates many elements of Main Street vernacular architectural style outlined in the Delray Beach CBD architectural guidelines with a storefront frontage type. The parapet has been lowered in keeping with historic height, and the entrance doors are recessed to avoid any conflicts when it's opened onto the sidewalk. The facade is composed of the tripartite with a base, a middle, and a top, and it meets the storefront requirements. The proposal was reviewed by DDA in September, recommending approval, and the City Commission did approve the waivers associated with the proposal on October 17th. These are your board motions, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Any rebuttals?
Chair, public comment first.
Public comments first. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this particular item? You have 3 minutes to do so. Okay, seeing none. Mr. Myatt, any rebuttal statements?
I've just, I didn't maybe spend enough time on what we're taking down. I'd just like to maybe go back to that to show you what's there now. It's in our presentation on the second page, I believe. It's a large projecting metal roof that's in bad repair. There you go. You can see it at the bottom there. You can see how it kind of encroaches on the building
Yeah.
to the east. So that's what's there now. But that was all that I forgot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez, any rebuttal?
No.
Okay, great. To the board, Ms. Perdue, would you like to start for us?
Okay, yeah, I think it'll be an improvement. I'm just a little concerned it's going more towards the modern look as compared to Boulefay's next door. Has a little more detail on like the facade of the, let's see. Well, yeah, it doesn't show it, but on Boulefay, at the top, there's a little more architectural
Oh,
detail.
beautiful
Yeah.
masonry cornice.
I just would like
Yeah.
to see that, but that's, again, personal, which has no weight or credence. So,
Yeah.
I think it looks good. But
We think our building will accent that
Oh.
because that is pretty special. You don't see that often.
But no, I think taking down the awning definitely would be a plus.
Okay, Adam?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that this is going to enhance that overall section of the block. And I think that you guys have taken some thought and consideration into making sure that you're not encroaching on the architectural design of the building next door to it. So that I appreciate that.
Okay, Mr. Boyd?
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Alvarez?
No comments.
No comments. Okay, I agree with my my counterparts. I think it's a good compromise between what's there and bridging your north and south, east and west. I'm directionally challenged. So I think it's a very good compromise in line with the area. Okay, so those are my only comments. Can I have a motion?
You want to do it?
I think staff's getting the slide up, if you can read that.
I have it right here.
Okay.
Move to approve the requested Level 2 site plan modification to alter the facade of the existing building located at 310 East Atlantic Avenue, including updating the storefront frontage, providing each bay individual entrance doors, replacing the existing canopy with a metal awning, and providing an overall Main Street vernacular style by finding that the request meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Can I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
First and a second, can you call roll, please?
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdue,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, congratulations.
Well, our office and the Leyland Group thanks the board and the Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you very much.
Great job. 9B has been modified from tonight's agenda, so that takes us to item 9C, Delray Townhomes 2021-025. Mr. Gedanik, if you can introduce the item for us, please.
Sure. Good evening, board members. Julian Gedanik, Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record file number 2021-025. It's a project known as Delray Townhomes. And once I open this presentation, I will turn it over to the applicant.
In the meantime, are there any ex parte communications for this item?
No.
None for me either.
And before I pass it over, actually, I just want to advise that there should be some correspondence that was provided in your package of some opposition we received via email.
Aye.
Thank you. Good evening.
Microphone's yours.
For the record, Jason Weber with Kinley Horn, 1615 South Congress Avenue, Suite 201, Delray Beach, Florida, 33445, acting as agent for Ocean Ridge Rentals, LLC, woman-owned small business local to Delray Beach. Thank you for having us again tonight. Try and make this relatively brief for you all, aside from what Mr. Julian mentioned here. This is our second time back to you. We got some feedback from our first meeting. Just for a reference, the project location is on 133rd Road South, just west of Barwick Road. The project consists of a approximately 3-acre net after we do the right-of-way donation on the north side of the property. Current use is vacant. There was a single-family house on it. It is future land use designation of multiple family residential with the zoning district of medium density residential RM8, and there's no overlay district. There is a parcel to the east of us that was recently annexed as single family residential that came through City Commission about 2 weeks ago now, and had the opportunity to watch that presentation, see some feedback from City Commission. Won't go through all this zoning history, but we have been at this since October of 2020 for a multitude of different reasons. We had originally submitted, per the client's request, for 12 units per acre, which would be the maximum allowed under RM rezoning. Based on public comment and the board at that time, that rezoning request was withdrawn, and we resubmitted with a redesign to go down to just the 8 units per acre for the RM8. There was a year delay for quieting title for the right-of-way donation area, and since then we've been back at it. As I mentioned, we came up before you on September 27th, and generally the site plan received great verbal support from the board. There were a few items of concern relating to the improvements of 133rd Road South, which was requested by the city engineer. We have a limited right-of-way outside of our property frontage that's only 25 feet, but we worked with the city engineer, and the section for the design with 2 9-foot lanes and a 5-foot sidewalk was approved by DSMG. Mr. Bennett, at the time of that meeting, noted that the roadway improvements were technically outside of the purview of SPRAB, but we wanted to listen to your comments and feedback. Similarly, there are concerns relating to traffic on Barwick Road, mainly relating to the school traffic, which Mr. Bennett similarly noted that was outside of the purview. The city actually does have a project currently for pedestrian and vehicular safety upgrades to Barwick Road, separate from any of these other standalone projects. The main point of feedback was that we had a traffic letter, traffic statement, and the TPS letter approval from the county that was from 2021, just given the length of the project. The board requested us to update that to see if there were any changes. The previous letter was found to have an insignificant impact on traffic for the surrounding roadway network. So since then, we have gone back and redone the traffic study with updates to current timeframes and current build-out dates, and received that traffic performance standards letter approval. Just a few notes from the adjacent property to the east, their city commission meeting. That was for their annexation, future land use change, and rezoning. The city engineer, Patrick Figuerella, gave sworn testimony about the acceptability of the roadway design proposed for 133rd Road South, with the 9-foot travel lanes complying with all required codes for low volume residential roads. Fire Rescue Chief Tommy also gave sworn testimony about the acceptable roadway design for fire access, turning radius into the road, and some other criteria, and the fact that that road is not where they would fight fires from. It would be the internal access roads, which the internal design of this site plan meets those requirements as well. There was also a comment made at that meeting about the school board actually finally moving forward with some traffic improvements in the area and having those conversations. They mentioned that it is difficult to address those internal circulation and stacking conversations without having additional land, but the school district and Lake Worth Drainage District are in conversations regarding obtaining additional land, to which the city doesn't have any. So just brief, because I know we've got some new board members since we were here 2 months ago. We've got 5 residential buildings. They're townhome style, but they are units for rent. Our client is gauging this type of development with the 25 units towards small families. They're not designated affordable housing, but the price point will be for that type of demographic of small families. 25 total units, which is just below the maximum density allowed in RM8, 5 2-bedroom, 23 bedroom, and they meet the minimum square footage requirements. We're donating the northern 25-foot portion of right-of-way for expanded right-of-way whenever the future development comes in. Adding multi-use path at the south border along the canal and improving 133rd Road South out to Barwick Road. And the project does meet all of the development standards and criteria with no waiver or variance requests. Here are the 5 residential buildings in red here. We've got some amenities, clubhouse and a pool, the tot lot for the toddler amenity, and a full basketball court has a teen amenity. We've got a sewer lift station over on the southern portion that will connect to public utilities. And there's the multi-use path along the canal, which has some great landscaping, shade trees, and a shrub there separating that from the rest of the development. Parking, we've got adequate parking for the project with 1 parking space in the garage, 2 parking spaces in the driveway, as well as a guest and ADA parking. We are in excess of the minimum required. Landscaping, just these light green highlighted trees are existing trees that we're maintaining, so we've tried to maintain as many of the existing trees as possible throughout the development. This is the northern portion up along 133rd. We've got some proposed street trees as well that will be okay. They're in a correct location for where the future roadway will be designed once the rest of it has a 50-foot right-of-way. Internal drive trees of a couple different species. And then we've got screening between the buildings with some nice landscape alcoves and screening along the 2 perimeters between properties. Similarly, along the south, internal drive trees, all those light green trees are maintained, especially the one in between the tot lot and the residential buildings. Those are some nice mature trees. Landscaping around the amenities, screening between the buildings similarly, and between the adjacent properties. One thing of note, the 133rd Road South improvements that we worked with city engineer and DSMG on that approval, we've got new sidewalks shown all the way out to Barwick Road that our client is responsible for. Depending on timing with the adjacent property to the east, we may do some cost sharing, but this is part of our approval that we need to make these construction improvements for the right-of-way. So sidewalk along the north right-of-way line that goes all the way out to Barwick. The south side of our frontage will be in the location that the ultimate right-of-way will be in the future. This area, we do have the full 50-foot right-of-way, so that can be designed and will ultimately connect into the roadway when there's more development to the east, that east property, and going further out to Barwick. We do have 10-foot wide lanes in that area, and they narrow down to the 9-foot lanes for the remainder in this green area, just because there's only a 25-foot right-of-way. It's the maximum amount of width of roadway and sidewalk with existing utilities. It's also going to be pervious pavement. We don't have room in there to put closed drainage or an outfall, so it's going to be pervious pavement, so improvement from a drainage perspective there. Just noting the updated traffic analysis. So this project does generate minimal traffic. The 25 units using the accepted methodology by the county and the city generates AM peak hour trips of 2 trips in and 8 trips out. PM peak hour is 8 trips in and 5 trips out. So, pretty small traffic generation. This is actually considered an insignificant, This is actually considered an insignificant impact to the roadway networks. We also did hear your feedback and put in our traffic study that was submitted to the county and to the city, a time of day distribution, looking at those 2 hours worth of pickup time from 1 to 3 p.m. when it's the worst in that area. So the anticipated number of trips for this property that would be generated during those times is 7 trips from 1 to 2 and 9 trips from 2 to 3 p.m. So that's a car about every 7 to 8 minutes during that time frame. So again, not a significant traffic generator. This project isn't going to exacerbate those problems further. And then we've got the updated Palm Beach County traffic approval letter. This is just a small excerpt just showing the development criteria in there for the 25 development units of the low-rise multifamily residential. The total number of trips, so even that in a whole day is not a lot. A trip is one trip out and one trip in, so not a whole lot of generation there. And then the peak hour is really what the county focuses on. So the highlighted red below says it's generates the less than 21 peak hour trips, and the impacts are insignificant and meets the traffic performance standards of Palm Beach County. So summary of the request, I'll keep it brief there, and if there's anything else we need to talk about, I can gladly come up. Looking for site plan approval, landscape approval, and architectural elevation approval tonight. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair, while staff is loading their presentation, I have just a minute. I just want to clarify some of the statements by the applicant, especially for the board members that were not here. If you remember, when this item was presented, the board began discussing the design elements that were within the right-of-way, such as sidewalk locations, road width, etc. Those went through a separate approval process, as the applicant mentioned, the DSMG, and they're not really, their design and their functionality is not before this board because they're outside the four corners of the site plan. There are some elements associated with your findings, specifically in 446 I, that talks about their standards to mitigate the impacts of the density, both internal and external, and one of those elements does include traffic. So I want to make it clear that the idea of traffic or traffic generation is not eliminated from your discussion. It's just that the board does not have the authority to modify the improvements that DSMG has approved within the right-of-way itself. So just to be clear what's before you and what can still be discussed, and I'm happy to answer questions or help guide you if we get into those issues again.
Thank you. Mr. Gdanek?
Yes, hello again, board members. So the applicant gave a very thorough account of the scope of the project, so I'm kind of just going to go through this relatively briefly and summarize the facts. I know some of you have already seen this, and others this is new to you, so I also am happy to make myself available for any questions afterwards if there's any clarification needed. But beginning, so this is agenda item 9C, 4652 133rd Road South. The project is known as Delray Townhomes. It was previously classified as a Class 5. With the adoption of the new Chapter 2 ordinance, it is now considered a Level 3 site plan, and it's file number 2021-025. The current use is single family or since demolished, so currently vacant. The land use designation is medium residential. The zoning district is medium residential, RM8, and the land use is multifamily residential. This is an aerial view of the subject property to have an idea of the context. Again, property that was recently the subject of an annexation is to the east, to the west is single family, and then you have intermixing of single family and multifamily around the larger area. These are the surrounding properties for context, to the east, to the west, and then this is the subject property. It's quite landscaped, so it's difficult to see the full extent of the property, but that's from 133rd Road South currently. And then this is looking westward on 133rd Road South to give an idea of what that existing condition is currently. So the request before you today is a Level 3 site plan application, including a landscape plan and architectural elevations for a 25-unit multifamily development. Again, that is shown in a townhouse typology, but these are, again, for rent, as the applicant clarified. So a bit of background. This site was developed, again, with a single-family home in 1975. That's since been demolished. At that time, it was in an unincorporated Palm Beach County. In 2007, the subject property was subject to an annexation request, and it was brought into the city of Delray Beach via ordinance number 7006. At that time, a zoning district designation of RM8 was established for this property. There is also an annexation and LUMA, so land use map amendment for the adjacent property that has been approved, and then the zoning district of that adjacent property is still going through the process to determine what that will be. But again, that is a completely separate application. It's a different applicant, different property owner. It's not really related to this specific request, but I just wanted to provide that background. And then, as you know, most of you are aware, this application was previously considered by SPRAB on September 27th. At that meeting, as the applicant has gone over, there was request and direction from the board to provide an updated traffic analysis and traffic approval letter from Palm Beach County, which they have since done. So looking at the site plan data, there is 5 residential buildings, each with 5 units. It's a mix of 2 and 3 bedrooms. There's 1 2-bedroom in each building and then 4 3-bedrooms. There's an amenity building with a pool at the front, the northeast corner of the development. There are other recreational amenities, including a playground and basketball courts, appropriate for a diverse mix of ages. And then there's a shared use path adjacent to the canal. Our comprehensive plan requires that new development adjacent to railroad corridors and canals provide an area dedicated for recreation purposes, with the idea being over time, as adjacent properties also develop, you will have a contiguous shared path network that's available to the public. Required parking is provided in the individual garages and driveways for each unit, as well as surplus guest parking adjacent to the clubhouse. And then again, as mentioned, not fee simple townhouses. These are a townhouse typology multifamily rental development. This is just a blow up of the site plan. Again, you can see each individual building comprises 5 units. They're spaced out according to the requirements of code. This site meets the requirements in terms of building footprint and lot coverage, as well as exceeding the requirements of open space. Moving towards the street improvements, as the applicant referenced, they will be required to dedicate 25 feet of right-of-way. So the portion of right-of-way in front of their subject property will go from 25 feet, which is currently existing, to a total of 50 feet. They will be improving the road as is typically required for a width of that size. And then they will also be required to improve the rest of 133rd Road South to the engineering standards as approved by DSMG, which is the Development Services Management Group. That's a collection of different directors and other positions in the city that decide on matters relevant to things such as right-of-way improvements. That was, again, decided in 2021 in terms of the 9-foot travel lane width. Travel lanes will be 10 feet in front of the subject property, but where the limited right-of-way exists, they will provide 9 feet, as well as 2 feet of drainage and a 5-foot wide sidewalk. It is important to note that currently there is no sidewalk on this street, so they will be providing full pedestrian connectivity from their development all the way to Barwick Road. This is the landscape plan. It's fully covered. They're providing their required buffering from adjacent properties. They've also increased the minimum required setback from the side property lines to further enlarge that buffering between the buildings and the adjacent properties. There's foundation landscaping interspersed where applicable, street trees in the front of the development. It's well covered, well landscaped, and they meet their requirements. With regard to the design, they are proposing a Mediterranean revival architectural style, which is customarily appropriate for this region and is one of the accepted design styles in the city of Delray Beach. This isn't in the CBD, so it's not necessarily subject to those regulations, but this is one of the styles that has been deemed appropriate. There are elements of the style that are again, appropriate and true to that architectural category. They're utilizing smooth white stucco, and then contrast is introduced through sort of warmer tone elements like the tile roofing and then the accents around the windows. Overall, there's subtle ornamentation and architectural treatment throughout the facades, which is appropriate for the style as well. This is looking at the the elevations. You can see the residential buildings and then the clubhouse building, which is to the left. And I also want to point out that our code requires that there is shifts and recesses in the massing of townhouse units so that they're not all a flat facade. So they do comply with that. With every 2 or 3 units, there is a shift, so that creates movement across the facades. These are your required findings criteria. So 4618 is your criteria for design. Generally, you need to determine if it is in compliance with and conformity with good taste, good design, and in general contributes to the image of the city, et cetera, et cetera. This was fully detailed in the staff report in terms of that analysis. And then for site plans in general, there is the criteria in section 3.11, which is consistency with the land use map. This project is consistent with the land use map as well as the existing zoning district. Concurrency review, the concurrency analysis was also detailed in the staff report. It's been updated to reflect the revised traffic analysis that was provided by the applicant. In general, the traffic that will be generated by this trip is insignificant and it will not materially affect the existing roadway network. And then there's other analysis as well in terms of parks and open space. They will be required to pay a $500 park impact fee per unit, which is required for all residential development in the city. And then C, consistency with the comprehensive plan. This project, in staff's opinion, does generally comply with the requirements and applicable goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. And then lastly, compliance with the LDRs. No waivers or relief are sought. This does comply with all applicable land development regulations. Moving on, your board options tonight are to move approval. You can move approval as amended. You can move denial, or if you so choose, you can continue with further direction and more feedback. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kodanik. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this particular item? You have 3 minutes per individual. And as the attorney has reminded us as a board, I just want to remind you as well that the waivers are no longer part of this process. They have been pre-approved, and because I know there are several communications regarding the waiver, okay? Please state your name and address for the record.
Jackie Bronke, excuse me, Sable Lakes, 1310 Laurelwood Lane. Sable Lakes is right across the street on Barwick, front 133rd Road South. 455 homes. I'm the president of Phase 3 with 190 homes and homeowners. The traffic study approval was not a surprise on paper. It looks good on paper. Not when you're a Sable Lakes resident, but we recognize after presentations to the City Commission and to you all, we gave them traffic visuals, videos, photos, showed what it looked like to have two cars and a person walking on a sidewalk. We gave them all those visuals, and in the end, at the last meeting, the City Commission agreed that even if 133rd Road South could hold that traffic, Barwick can't. Those road improvements on Barwick that are planned don't reach us yet. And they've been like 5 years in the planning, so who knows how many more years those improvements are gonna take to reach down below Lake Ida, where we are. So recognizing that the traffic will be an issue, the parcel to the east of the one we're talking about today was rezoned. And it was rezoned to the most restrictive density. I think that's 10 homes. It was rezoned because the recognition was that such additional traffic could not be in the immediate future or near future absorbed by Barwick and the surrounding communities of 455 homes with that many voters or more. So I bring that in front of you. The plan's beautiful. I thought there were gonna be 15. The fact that there's 25 now makes me very nervous. So being helpless as a resident, other than my word, if there was any way to lower the amount of the townhouses, that would greatly aid our quality of life there in Sable Lakes. We're not counting on the school district to move fast either. And I don't know what land there is with the Lake Worth Drainage District. There's only 10 feet between the canal and another area of townhomes. So I don't know what that's all about. I'm interested in seeing it, and I'll follow that. But just to give you all the information I have, thank you for your consideration and for listening.
Thank you.
Sir, can you just confirm that you were sworn in?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Were my 3 minutes up? You just reminded me of something.
No, I just wanted to make sure we had some individuals arrive late, so I just wanted to make sure that if you speak, just confirm that you were sworn in for us, please.
Oh, I was.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say that if you're following the comprehensive plan, the fact that the other parcel is now the most restrictive density and the one next to it isn't, it's kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alice Finst, 707 Place Tavant. This seems like too much to put onto Barwick Road. Maybe take off half of the first units and put the landscaping further on back so it fits in with the appearance of Barwick Road, which is one of the nicest roads in Delray Beach. But I think that if you took off the first unit and put the landscaping further set back, then it won't be quite so obvious. And especially since there'll probably be cars lined up in front of every garage door, the whole street front, and I think I think it's a bit more than we need in that part of the city. We've lived on Barwick for many years, and this is pretty overwhelming to my eyesight as to what is going in there or proposed, and it's up to this board how you vote, because we will be with this forever.
Thank you, Ms. Alice. Is there any other comments?
Before you ask, I was sworn in. Thank you.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Pardon?
Your name and address for the record.
My name is Arnie Katz. My address is 6123 Caladium Road, Delray Beach, Florida. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Alliance of Delray, and we are here supporting our local member communities in regards to Delray Townhomes. We feel that this parcel should be treated no differently than the parcel adjacent and east of it that was recently approved under different zoning. We would suggest that a maximum of 6 units per acre would be most appropriate, while less would make us happier. Please consider the fact that since the annexation and zoning of this parcel in 2007, that the infrastructure to handle the higher density has yet to be improved. We also want to consider the area residents concerned that this, and of course the excessive traffic that comes along with 25 units, each having a 2-car driveway and a single-car garage. If you're putting in 3 bedrooms, there's going to be 2 cars, so you're looking at 50 cars approximately, would further impact the severe traffic problem already affecting Banyan Creek Elementary. We would appreciate your consideration in giving us less density. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, pardon me. I'm not sworn in. I apologize. I didn't intend to speak. Good evening, Mr. Bennett and Ms. Miller and panel, if you would. I'll be super brief. Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the
Yes.
whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you so much. And I do apologize. I was just here to hear a little bit about Edge of Pineapple and had no intention of speaking on this topic. But my name is Julie Cassell, and I live at 3717 Satin Leaf Court in Delray Beach, Florida. And I live in this neighborhood. And I've sat where you sit today, so I understand how difficult it is when you're making these decisions. And I don't want to say anything in particular to try and persuade you, but just to say that as a resident of the neighborhood, I come with a particular level of input, and this is challenging for us. We know these parcels are going to be developed, and we accept that, but we've been for years and years fighting in our neighborhood for what we call our quality of life, because the school in our neighborhood consistently expands. And I want to say 90% of the kids who come to the school come via a vehicle. They don't come by bus, and they don't walk. So, forgive me if that number is slightly off. 3 years ago, I knew that number off the top of my head, but it may be different. So we have traffic 2 times a day that lasts for a substantial amount of time. And it does impact our quality of life. And there are great concerns about whether or not this alley has the capacity to handle the traffic coming in and going out, the fact that children stand at the edge of the alley as a bus stop every single morning, the fact that there have been a number of traffic incidents, which I think someone presented in front of the commission. The commission saw fit to reduce the number of allowed units on the adjoining parcel, and that was down to 10. This is substantially greater. So we're just asking you to give thoughtful consideration to this because it is a problem. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, do you have any rebuttal statements?
And just to be clear, because there was testimony, if you want to conduct cross-examination of any witness, you're entitled to do that as well.
I don't think any need for a cross, but yeah, would like to rebut a couple of the points made. Thank you. Julie, if you could bring up our presentation, please. Perfect. Thank you. We were made aware of some of the concerns of the public, and there are similar concerns to what was addressed by the board in the September meeting as well. Like I mentioned, we did watch the city commission meeting where there was a lot of discussion about similar topics as well. Want to talk about a couple of things because part of the request for the RM8 zoning is we need to prove that we meet certain performance standards for the way that we're designing this project and how it has been designed and prepared to meet those performance standards in order to go above that 6 units per acre. I understand people always want less density when it's near their houses, and completely appreciate that. The RM8 zoning and the RM zoning in general does require generally 6 to 12 units per acre. So want to bring a couple of these items, noting the medium density residential district, base of 6 units per acre and a maximum of 12. As I mentioned, we had originally requested, our client wanted to get 12 units per acre, dramatically decreased that. Just for a note of reference, the decrease of 8 units per acre to 6 units per acre on this property would be a decrease from 25 units to 19. 6 homes, 6 families, 6 people who could have another home in the city. The city is facing a housing crisis. We all know this. This is a major focus for the city and part of the comprehensive plan. We still feel that the development and the density is appropriate. As noted in the bottom, they need to achieve certain performance standards. I typically don't like to read a bunch of code to you guys, but do want to address this. So. This is the development matrix here. A couple of code items, as mentioned, we do exceed any of the code required. We're significantly less than the maximum lot coverage of buildings, significantly higher on the minimum open space required. So a couple performance standards, yet again, just rehashing that. Traffic circulation. Don't really want to read this over to you all. I think you're familiar generally with these performance standards, but wanted to make note of traffic improvements. We are making significant improvements to 133rd Road South. The short length of the internal driveway limits the ability of speeds 20 miles per hour within the development as approved by the city engineer during the TAC review. And as mentioned, we do have an insignificant impact. Everyone, doesn't matter what the project is, people always have an issue with traffic and when there's new development. Ours has been proven by county standards to be insignificant. Buildings placed through the development in a manner that reduces overall massing, provides a feeling of open space. 5 separate buildings and the clubhouse of 1 story, so different heights of those buildings. They're spaced greater to or equal than the minimum required separation by LDRs, and the open space, as I mentioned, is significantly higher, about 40% as opposed to the 25% required. When we're adjacent to districts or zoning of properties that have a lesser intensity, we actually have to increase the building setbacks as part of that and provide more perimeter trees. So as noted, we did increase the setbacks of the buildings from the property line by the 25% required. And we've got the silver buttonwood trees at 1 per 30, and actually have areca palms separating those as well, as also a continuous hedge to screen those properties of the lesser intensity development. So we've met all of the criteria of that. Varying streetscape design, building design, setbacks staggered, as Julia mentioned. The facades need to be offset for a multifamily residential development of this type. I think he did a great job of commenting on the architectural style, which we do have more detailed floor plans and elevations and renderings if you'd like to see those as well. Subtle detailing of different window treatments and other things like that as well. Number of different unit types.
Can I just interrupt you to say, not necessarily the entire proposal over again, is there any particular points that you just want to wrap up with?
Sure, absolutely. Big point of all this is, of all the performance standards, it's our opinion that we meet them. It's actually also staff's opinion that we meet the requirements of the performance standards. So get to the meat of it, yes. We meet all the performance standards. Staff agreed to that. We worked heavily with staff over the last 3 years on this project to ensure that it met the development standards. And then just a couple of comments from some of the board members last time. Well thought out development, really liked the project. Actually comments of, did a nice job with the amount of space you have, getting a lot of interesting things in there, but not too much that it looks crowded. Landscape looks great. What you can do when you're not trying to cram 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. So I do want to rebut some of the statements made in the letter also that you received, which were pertinent to these items. So, and then Adam, if there's any specific items on traffic to rebut in there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Adam Kerr with Kimley Horn and Associates, 477 South Rosemary Avenue in West Palm Beach. Just to rebut some of the statements about the amount of traffic that this will generate, the county and the city's approved methodology for determining the amount of trips. It's 12 peak hour trips for the entire project in a peak hour. And then to put that into perspective in terms of the amount of traffic on Barwick Road today, the capacity of Barwick, which it's actually under capacity today, and will be with our project. The capacity is around 1,400, between 1,400 and 1,500 vehicles in a peak hour, and we're adding 25. So I just wanted to add that perspective. Thanks.
Mr. Gedanik, do you have any rebuttal statements?
None for me.
Okay, thank you. So to the board, Mr. Alvarez, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit familiar with the project. I was here last time that you guys presented it, and I do have to agree in terms of the landscape, the amount of open space. It's refreshing to see a project that dedicates that much open space to the future residents of this. I think the product is also something that be very welcome in the city, having something that's not an apartment or a condo for small families. So having the 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units, I think is going to be very beneficial. Yes, I think the roadway cross section is not ideal, right? We all know that, but I would have to go with staff's and the SMG discretion of that's been approved and considered particularly for safety measures. I'm not familiar with the traffic on Barwick myself, but it in essence, the amount of trips based on the report, that's what I have to go by personally myself. It doesn't seem like it would be a big impact. So I think that's where I would stand on that, just based on the information that we're presented here today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I agree. Seems to meet all the requirements and then some, as was mentioned, and the staff has approved it, so I have no further comments.
Adam?
I am familiar with that traffic out there. I think that this is one of those areas where you're falling within the parameters, but the perception from the optics when you're there are much different than the numbers. But with that being said, I think that you've taken a lot of care and open space in your design, so I appreciate that aspect of it.
Spread up. Thank you.
I think you used one of my quotes. I think it's a very nice project. I like the way you did it. A lot of green space. However, I think I'll say the same thing I said last time. It's the traffic patterns and all that are all just mathematical calculations. And to think that schools are going to be getting out in a 2-hour window, it's not how it works. All those parents are lined up at the same time. If you've got a 2-family household, young families, you've got both people working, and although the county and the city and the traffic patterns say that they're going to be leaving in another 2-hour window, it's not how life works. I mean, people are leaving between 8 and 9 to go to work. They're taking their kids between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, and it's not every 7 minutes. It's everybody all at once, and I don't think, not you guys, but again, I don't think that the traffic that's going to be in that area, even with a small development next to it, and then there's the one to the west, that's going to be developed. 133rd is going to be just a traffic jam, and trying to get out on Barwick is going to be a traffic jam. So I don't know how you guys can solve the problem, but I don't think it's realistic to just go by the studies that are done. Studies are not real life.
Thank you so much. I think my word of the day is empathy. I'm quite empathetic to the residents because I also have owned property and lived in this area for 25 years, and I know the realism of the situation. I'm also quite empathetic with the fact that we all are going to force to move over because Delray is growing. Change is difficult. Our lifestyles, all of us are going to be impacted, if not today, tomorrow, via traffic. And we do need affordable, large-size rental units. Given the economy, not everybody will be able to buy for a mortgage, and it's not fair that everybody who can afford a mortgage gets crammed into something tiny. So I don't think you've ever had any resistance to the product itself, the design of the product, but the impact on the current residents and the impact on the realism of what's going on there. My final issue of empathy is the fact that the calculations for traffic and parking in development world is 20 years behind what is going on in the real world today. And that is not something that we as staff can solve, and the developer who tries to do a good product should not, and the citizens who have to live with it should not. I don't know who will pick up the mantle and address how we calculate traffic and how we calculate parking, but it's not tonight. That being said, you've done what we asked you to do, you listened, and we do appreciate that. I'd like to call for a motion, please.
Julian, do you want to put the slide
We're all gazing around.
Apologies, yeah.
You want me to do it?
Go ahead.
So it sounds like A is the one.
Well, it's whatever motion you would like to make as a
Okay.
board member.
All right, well, all right, move approval of the level 3 site plan application known as Delray Townhomes 2021-025, including a landscape plan, architectural elevations for a 25-unit multifamily development located at 4652 133 Road South, by finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Can I ask a question?
Second for
Yeah, if you want to do a
comments.
second for discussion,
Okay, I'll second
for discussion?
for discussion.
Okay, and then what's the question?
My question, what is the difference between A and B?
Okay,
Do we want to do B?
no, because, so B is approved as amended, so if there was some portion of the project that needed to be changed and the applicant agreed, we would proceed with
Okay.
option B, and then we'd read what that amendment is.
Okay, so
but-
it doesn't refer to what we did last time they were before
No,
us?
because there was no amendment, it was just a postponement, so the applicant could obtain additional evidence to present to the board tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Can you call roll, please?
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you all. Appreciate all your feedback, all the residents' feedback, and thank you very much for the vote of confidence tonight.
Thank you. Good. Okay, that moves us to agenda item 9D as in David, Edge of Pineapple Grove, 2022-008. And Ms. Rodriguez? Ah, yes.
Chair, while there's setting up, I'll just take a brief second or minute to talk about this item just a little. Normally, this board is looking at an application and making a final determination of approval or denial. This is a waiver request within the Central Business District, so our land development regulations require this board to provide a recommendation on whether that should be approved or denied, and then that recommendation goes to City Commission. So this process on this application is maybe a little different than your normal application.
Thank you.
I would like to enter file number 2022-008 into the record. This is for agenda item 9D, which is the recommendation for CBD waivers for Edge at Pineapple Grove, which is located at 605 Northeast 2nd Street. The applicant is here today to present.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Christina Belenke of Dunning, Miskell, and Backman. My address is 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Obviously, there are some of you that saw this project before, possibly only one or two. We were back here in front of SPRAB in, I believe it was April, to discuss the waivers. And had postponed at the time. I will go through my full presentation because of the new faces on here and some members that were absent during that meeting, and then we'll discuss some of the changes that were made. So just to kind of orient you, the property is highlighted in kind of that pink box. Is located at the northeast corner of Northeast 6th Avenue and Northeast 2nd Street, about 2 blocks north of Atlantic Avenue. Here is kind of a close-up aerial of the property. It's 0.39 acres. Again, you can see kind of the location across from Southeast 6th Avenue. You have the cigar bar. To the south, there's the Renaissance Village Apartments. To the east, there are some townhomes that are fairly recently constructed. And then as you go further east, you do have a single-family home community. Here are some existing photos of the property. You may recognize it. It was that Poulette restaurant. It has been closed for quite some time. Also on the eastern portion of the property, there is a single-family residence and guest cottage. So it's both properties combined, essentially, that make up this parcel. So this is a graphic showing the proposed project, and we're going to get into some of the details as it relates to the 2 waiver requests. But essentially, it is an 8-unit townhouse project. We are on 2 primary streets, being 6th Avenue and 2nd Street. So we do have kind of the required frontages for those primary streets, being the stoop frontage type. You have kind of the building set in a little bit at the corner on the 1st floor. It is 3 stories. The 4th floor has a bonus room and an amenity deck. So it's got some outdoor living space there as well. Here is our proposed site plan. We are going to walk you through the waivers in a little bit more detail, and unfortunately with it being black and white, it's a little bit hard to read, but essentially there are 4 units that will front Federal Highway 6th Avenue, and then 4 units that front the alley to the east. We have a central driveway that's located in the middle. And that will serve the parking garages that are attached to each unit. Each parking garage does have room to fit 2 cars. So that's primarily how the project will be parked, and there is also some on-street parking that we were able to accommodate. So again, we're here before you for 2 separate waiver requests. The first is from LDR section 4.4.13C to reduce the front setback at the corner, and it should be of Northeast 6th Avenue and Northeast 2nd Street, from 10 feet to 3.5 feet for the 2nd and 3rd floors only, not the 1st floor. And the second is from LDR section 4.4.13 I3BI to permit vehicular access to the property from Northeast 2nd Street, which is a primary street. So we're going to go into those now in a little bit more detail. Starting with the corner setback waiver. So the request is really due to a corner cord dedication at the intersection. The property right now is essentially a box. So we are meeting the setback requirements on Northeast 6th Avenue, and we are meeting the setback requirement on Northeast 2nd Street. At the corner, there is now a dedication required for that corner. So there's a taking and the property line is shifting. So at that corner only, the property line goes further in, and so we are requesting a waiver from that setback, again at that corner location only, and only for the 2nd and 3rd stories. So you can see, I don't know if this, oh, look at that. Here we have the 1st floor. You can see that the building is clipped at that corner so that we meet the setback. And then going to kind of the 2nd and 3rd stories, we are proposing to keep kind of that box. And really that's to create some visual interest to the property. With the ground floor meeting the required setbacks, the pedestrian experience will not be affected. The upper story encroachment overhangs the landscape area and emphasizes and accents the corner of the intersection. The hardscape at that corner runs adjacent to the landscape area, so you won't have any pedestrians walking below the overhang portion of the building. The proposed streetscape does meet the requirements of the LDRs. We do have that 6-foot, 6-inch pedestrian clear zone at that corner with an 8-foot curb zone that's required. So we are still meeting all of the different pedestrian streetscape requirements. We are exceeding the minimum requirements and meeting the intent of the code and the intent of the setback provisions there still. The waiver will not diminish the pedestrian experience or the connectivity of the street and sidewalk networks. And again, this is going to the criteria for the waiver justification. These are also items that staff has noted in their staff report. It's also noted in the staff report that it will not negatively impact the neighboring area or create an unsafe situation. Again, we're still accounting for all of the pedestrian areas that are required to ensure pedestrians can not only travel safely along Federal Highway, I mean it is a busy intersection, but also to have an attractive and a nice pedestrian experience. And finally, going again to one of the waiver criteria, and as noted in the staff report, other projects with similar circumstances with the corner clip dedication have been granted similar waiver requests in the past. So moving on to the access waiver. So this map on your screen is part of the land development regulations for the CBD, and it essentially details the primary streets within the downtown area. So the primary streets are highlighted in kind of that dark black bold line, and you can see where the property is right there. So the primary street actually terminates, the primary street designation terminates at the alley adjacent to this parcel. So that pedestrian experience is not intended to continue east towards the Intracoastal Waterway. This is really the termination of it. Primary streets are intended to develop over time as superior pedestrian environments and are held to a higher standard as it relates to building placement, building frontages, the location of parking, and the location of service uses. So we are not proposing to diminish that. We are still, focused on building placement, having those pedestrian zones, the enhanced landscaping. The doors fronting Northeast 2nd Street have a stoop frontage type in adherence to these requirements. One more point here. Again, the primary street ends at the subject property and does not carry forward. So rather than a standard concrete sidewalk, we are proposing to have kind of attractive pavers that will run along both primary streets. And because of the delineation change in the pavers at the driveway, there's kind of a change in the paver type. They kind of have a crisscross pattern here as opposed to the straight line pattern where the pedestrian crossings are. So that will help delineate the vehicular use areas from the pedestrian areas. Again, along Northeast 2nd Street, we do have separate side entrances to the units to activate the streets. So there's an entrance kind of in this area, and then on this building here as well. And then the Renaissance Village project across the street actually, does not even activate the primary street frontage. Now, they were developed prior to those code provisions taking into effect, but they do have a large expansive blank wall along Northeast 2nd Street in this area, and a fair amount of off-street parking. So, again, we're not trying to get away from the pedestrian experience enhancement requirements. We actually feel we're exceeding the landscaping and providing an attractive experience. We have worked very closely with city staff on this particular street frontage to make sure that pedestrians do have a safe path, that there are no conflicts with utilities and the placement of street trees and the placement of other required trees. So we really have worked to ensure we are achieving the intent of the provision. And again, just per the staff report, the request is not anticipated to diminish the pedestrian experience or the connectivity of the streets or sidewalk network. The request is compatible with the nearby developments and is not anticipated to negatively affect the neighboring areas or create any unsafe conditions. And I think at this point, I'm going to pass this over to our architect and design team, Nick Netta, to run through the next couple slides.
Okay. I wasn't sworn in. I came late.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. My name is Nicholas Netta, principal of Netta Architects. We prepared the design for this particular application. A couple of things that I wanted to go over of why we established access points. This slide that you see is the existing property as it sits today. There are 3 principal buildings. There was a retail building fronting 6th and 2 residential buildings, one fronting 2nd, one fronting the alley. There are currently 2 existing curb cuts. The existing curb cut for the retail component fronted directly almost on the corner, not allowing any stacking, and then there's a secondary entrance for the residential property sitting on 2nd, as well as a driveway off of the alley component. What we looked at when we were putting the project together were the access points that are there today, and how can we benefit the city with the project by making the pedestrian experience along Northeast 2nd better. Also pointing out there, the existing site did have a access out onto Federal Highway on 6th. We tried to reestablish that opening, but the Florida Department of Transportation denied it. So they took that opening away. They allowed us to use that opening for pedestrian parking. This shows, as Christina had mentioned, the existing site setup. So we're proposing one centralized entrance driveway. We felt that this worked better for circulation for the project. And what we did is we centralized the access point into the driveway. We reduced the accesses off of Northeast 2nd from 2 down to 1. We developed the stacking condition at the corner where we could stack between 2 or 3 vehicles, where presently there's no stacking that exists. And also we've activated the street front with 2 additional visitor spaces and or delivery space for deliveries coming into the development. Just touching on parking, the present use of the site, this is from the Palm Beach County table of trip generation. The existing site just on Federal generates 12 trips per hour for the retail, plus the other 2 residential components each of those units would generate 1 trip. So you're looking at a total of 14 trips per peak hour. We're reducing that down to 4, roughly 1 car every 20 minutes coming in and out of the site. According to the tables, it'll be 1 in and 3 out. And lastly, we were here in April with the project, and we had some concerns about the activation or the pedestrian experience along Northeast 2nd from the Palm Trail group. We had 3 meetings with Palm Trail to try to work through it, and the result of that we removed the sidewalls from the side yard. We activated Northeast 2nd with landscape berms as they requested, and to try to increase the pedestrian experience. We worked closely with the city. It triggered 2 additional review periods. We had to activate the northeast elevation, the Northeast 2nd elevation now as a main entranceway, so we had to bring entrances off of that and do some minor redesign to the project. But this was kind of the culmination of those meetings and the activating of the pedestrian experience there. Christina?
Thank you. So just to Nick's point, obviously we were here in April. We have not just been sitting on our hands, until then waiting to come back to you. We were hoping to be in front of you a lot more quickly than, we were. But obviously at the last meeting, there were some residents that came out. It was the first we had heard of any neighbor concerns. So we wanted to ensure that we did sit down with those that were concerned and listened to their concerns and understood their concerns. We heard differing concerns from different groups. One individual, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but had concerns over us using the alley for access. The other group, wanted to ensure we had or we were using the alley instead of asking for the waiver. Unfortunately, we can't please everybody, but we certainly tried to make some revisions. We did take out the wall that was along 2nd Street to, again, address the concerns about potential diminishment of the pedestrian experience. So now we don't have a wall there. We have more landscaping. We have the doors with that stoop frontage type to, again, ensure that frontage is activated. Other things that we've done in the meantime, there were questions about, whether we could access only from the alley and what that would entail. And we ran, truck circulation points to see how that would function, whether a moving truck could get around through the alley and access internal to the project, what that meant for emergency services. We spoke to various members of police and fire services and emergency services in general to understand their concerns. If essentially we take out the access and shift the buildings around so that we were only coming in off the alley and accessing here, if there's a fire or an emergency situation kind of internal to the site, how does somebody get in there? How do the fire and police services get in there? They might park along, Federal Highway or 2nd Street if it's a true emergency, but then they have to go all the way around the building to get there. Secondarily, from a crime prevention through environmental design standards. That's a police kind of review, SEPTED design principles. I know various members of the police community that review projects, and when there's a dumpster enclosure, they're concerned because they can't see into it and want to make sure there's some kind of clearance. So if we're creating this box design where kind of your only access is from the alley and everything is closed off, that impacts your natural surveillance. Users can't observe what's going on from the streets. It violates kind of the activity support principle, where you need to place activity where individuals become part of the natural surveillance. So again, by allowing the eyes on the street, you're not going to have criminals being able to just go in there, because you do have cars passing by, people passing by. That adds to that natural surveillance. And then again, we wanted to direct foot and vehicular traffic in ways that decrease criminal opportunities. So that goes through like sight lines and preventing isolation of areas. So just to show you, we have been working on this since. Again, we spent a couple months to have these meetings with the neighbors. We resubmitted plans based on those conversations. We went through a staff level review. Staff had comments. We had to come back, revise the plans to address those comments. So we have been actively working on this project to bring it forward to what it is today. And then just briefly to run through the different criteria. Again, I think staff kind of detailed this in their report as well. So all the documentation is there, but the waiver shall not result in an inferior pedestrian experience along a primary street, such as exposing parking garages or large expanses of blank walls. Again, we've taken out the wall that was proposed along 2nd Street, so we meet that criteria. The waiver shall not allow for the creation of significant incompatibilities with nearby buildings or uses of land. We're compatible with what's around us, what's across the street, with the Renaissance Villages. Related to the access, again, Renaissance Villages has access off the alley, but they also have their primary access off Federal Highway, which is what you see in most situations with properties in the area that have access off the alley. It's a secondary access, and they still have another means to access the property. The waiver shall not erode the connectivity of the streets and sidewalk networks or negatively impact the adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We're not eroding that. We meet all of the curb zones, pedestrian zones, and have landscaping to enhance that as well. The waiver shall not reduce the quality of civic open space provided. This project does not meet the requirement for civic open space. It's not needed for this project due to the size. And then your LDR section 2.4.7B5 findings, the waiver shall not affect the neighboring area. Again, I think we're improving the situation from what's there. It is a low trip generating use. We are shifting the access points from what exists today to create a safer situation. It shall not significantly diminish the provision of public facilities. There's plenty of public facilities to serve the project. Shall not create an unsafe situation. Again, based on our conversations, we feel that this is a more safe situation than what the alternative might be, and does not grant a special privilege in that the same waiver would be granted under similar circumstances, and staff has noted in their report that similar waivers have been granted in the past. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Chair, can we do ex parte while staff is
Yes.
loading?
Is there any ex parte on this project? None here. Thank you.
All right. Just a few notes. You should have received some public comments if that's been passed out. And then also to note the code sections that are referenced in the staff report. For Chapter 2, it reflects prior to Ordinance 3123. So the property is zoned CBD in the Central Core Subdistrict, and this proposed use is for an 8-unit townhouse development, and this fronts two primary streets, Northeast 6th Avenue and Northeast 2nd Street. The waiver requests to the CBD requirements include the relief to allow vehicular access from that primary street and to reduce the front setback requirement from 10 feet to 3 feet 6 inches for the second and third floors only at the corner of Northeast 6th Ave and Northeast 2nd Street. The first waiver request is for relief of LDR section 4413I3B1. If a primary street is present, vehicular access to off-street parking must primarily come from alleys or secondary streets. The proposed project corners two primary streets and sides an alley adjacent to the multifamily residence. Pursuant to the CBD requirement, they should actually be getting the access from the alley for vehicular access. The proposed project is requesting to actually allow the vehicular access to be coming from Northeast 2nd Street. These are your required findings, also provided in the staff report. Overall, the request should not create an inferior pedestrian experience along a primary street. It must be compatible with the area, does not erode street or sidewalk connectivity, and does not reduce the quality of civic open spaces. Not applicable for this one. Also, the waiver request should not affect the neighboring area, create any unsafe situation, or result in the grant of a special privilege. Overall, the request for primary street access is not anticipated to diminish the pedestrian experience, especially since the sidewalk paver type and pattern continues through the access to ensure that the pedestrian experience is not only continuous, but also safer. It's also compatible with the nearby developments. For example, the townhouses to the east also have access from Northeast 2nd Street. It is also not anticipated to negatively affect the area to create unsafe conditions. The second waiver is relief to LDR section 4413D2A1, which is the property is located in the Central Core Subdistrict, and it must have a front setback of 10 feet. The proposed project is requesting to reduce that to 3 feet and 6 inches. The setback reduction is only for the second and third floor. The first floor will meet the CBD requirements. It's also good to note that the project did dedicate a 20-foot radius at the intersection of the Northeast 2nd Street and Northeast 6th Ave, so that did push their property line in. These again are the CBD required findings, and these are your general required findings. Another item to consider for this waiver request is to ensure that the setback reduction does not result in a streetscape that does not meet the minimum requirements, and the proposed project meets the streetscape requirements. Overall, the request to reduce the front setback is not anticipated to diminish the pedestrian experience or negatively affect the neighboring area. It is not anticipated to create an unsafe situation and also to respond to any architectural concerns. The proposed style of masonry modern typically has concepts of a solid mast with carved spaces to create entries and terraces, and these types of carved spaces can lead to deep overhangs that can provide shade at a pedestrian level. So these waiver requests were previously reviewed by SPRAB on April 12th of 2023. And after the deferral, the applicant has met with the residents to address their concerns. And as a result, the project has been revised to remove that privacy wall that was shown to you and along Northeast 2nd. And as a primary street, it is held to a higher standard. So the overall pedestrian experience, as stated before, it is continuous, and that actual pedestrian zone is ranging from 6 feet 1 inch to 7 feet. The proposed project, including the requested waivers, have been reviewed by DDA, and the DDA board supported the waiver requests. And the following slides are the board options. This will conclude my presentation.
Thank you so much. Are there any public comments? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Please do so. 3 minutes, and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Jill Schifferly, 321 Palm Trail, and I've been an 11-year resident of the Palm Trail neighborhood, and I've been on the board for almost that long. The Palm Trail neighborhood does not oppose a development of new townhomes here. We do oppose this design and these waivers, both of them. We're disappointed that the project has not really been changed to address our concerns. Several members of our neighborhood met with these representatives and expressed our key concerns. And it was not the wall. The concern was that moving the access closer to Federal Highway would create real problems for pedestrians and for traffic. The other concern we have is with the waiver of the setback for the design. According to the code, granting a waiver shall not result in an inferior pedestrian experience along a primary street, shall not affect the neighboring area, and shall not create an unsafe situation. This waiver for primary access would fail on all of these measures. First, creating a new access way so close to the busy intersection of Northeast 2nd Street and 6th Avenue, which is one of two key access points to the Palm Trail neighborhood. And this is on the edge of the Palm Trail neighborhood, not Pineapple Grove. It creates an unsafe condition for pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles. Cars going both east and west. It's a busy intersection. They're anxious to make the light. It's not a lot of time to get across Federal Highway. If you've got people turning into a driveway that's very close there, it's going to back up traffic into 2nd Street. It's also could back up traffic onto Federal Highway. As somebody who is a pedestrian on that corner multiple times a week, I can attest that this would not enhance the pedestrian experience. Pedestrians have to cross also. Now they've got an extra driveway to cross. In addition to the alley, which is not an alley, it's Hoffman Lane, and it was changed by the city to Hoffman Lane to provide access such as this for other townhome projects, which are now using it. So we believe that the new access lane also will result in fewer street trees because you've got another cut in there on 2nd Street. So the CBD requires street trees there. That's going to make for fewer of those, which is also a key priority for the Palm Trail neighborhood. We've been trying to get more street trees there for years. The EDGE should use the existing adjacent Hoffman Lane for entry to the project as required by the code and as the other surrounding new townhome projects are doing. Not to repeat myself, we've got Hoffman Lane, that's what it's for, let's use it. As for the front setback waiver, this creates an awkward top-heavy design that is inconsistent with surrounding properties, which actually create very large corner setbacks like the new Hampton Inn, which is on 5th Federal Highway going the other way. Even Atlantic Crossing, 1 block away, that corner, big corner setback. And also they have the top levels stepping back from the main level, which is to enhance the pedestrian experience. That's my 2 points. I think I'm done. We urge you to deny both of these waiver requests. We are not opposed to townhomes here. We are opposed to the waivers that would be required for this design. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mark Ronald. I live at 722 2nd Street, which is just slightly a block further away far away from this. So we walk our dogs back and forth every single day. I go by this intersection. Anytime we drive from our home, the only reasonable access to Federal Highway or anywhere is this way. So I am intimately familiar, and I've been doing that for years, and so has my wife. I am intimately familiar with the traffic patterns and the pedestrian experience and the aesthetics. In addition to that, I have advanced engineering credentials, and I ran a multi-billion-dollar engineering manufacturing company. I know something about this stuff. We had facilities, we grew facilities in 13 states, and I had to deal with boards like this. And there's a reason for waivers, and sometimes there's no way to proceed without a waiver. But it has to be a win-win situation. When you create a waiver, particularly for a factory or an engineering facility, it's got to be acceptable to the community because your employees are going to live there. This is not acceptable to the community, you've already heard. Clearly not acceptable to the community. I'm also on the board. Many of the statements made were counterintuitive. An improved pedestrian experience because you cut the sidewalk by 24 feet? Come on. And driving through it? That's not an improved pedestrian experience. Common sense would defy most of what was said. And if I had more than 3 minutes, I could pick this apart completely. Why is the situation what it is? Because the developers come up with an approach where the overriding objective is maximize the profit. The result of cramming 8 units into 1/3 of an acre, though meeting the FAR, is unsuitable for this particular property and the neighborhood. There are 2 adjacent developments on similarly sized lots. That's the 2 most recent developments. The one right across the street, Hoffman Lane, has 3 units on 1/3 of an acre. The one diagonally across 2nd Street, currently in development, has 4 units. The problem is that the developer cannot get 8 units in there without a waiver. If he had fewer units, he could use Hoffman Lane. He could even make Hoffman Lane wider. The developer purchased the property with full knowledge of the existing codes, full knowledge of the constraints of the property, and he's now unwilling to work within those constraints. You're creating an unsafe situation. If this board approves an unsafe situation, by the way, unsafe does not mean fender bender. You're very close to Federal Highway, which at rush hour in the morning and the night looks like a racetrack.
Okay, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. I think I made it pretty clear that I am opposed to this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening. I've been sworn in. Michael Schlesinger, 200 Northeast 7th Avenue, Unit 3. So, unlike some of the other people who have spoken, I am directly across the alley from the proposed project. My sole access, my driveway, ingress, egress to my house is directly across the alley from the proposed project. So, I'm particularly focused on the impact of the proposed project on the usage of the alley. Currently, the alley is very lightly traveled. It's very narrow. I think it's 16 feet wide. I understand the proposed plan contemplates an additional 2 feet, but even that, it's really only suitable for slow-moving traffic in one direction. And right now, it's really just used by waste removal trucks and U.S. mail, but it's lightly traveled, and I know that because we have a ring on the outside of the door, so I get pinged every time somebody goes by. The concerns that I have about the design of the proposed project is that 4 of those units would have their entrances facing the alley, and so, human nature being what it is, people are going to, notwithstanding the fact that the design contemplates that central drive, people are going to get dropped off in front of their residence by, cars, by Uber. They're going to have deliveries that drop off to the front door of their residence. So, in the absence of something being done to tightly regulate the possible increased use of the alley, it's going to become a safety issue. People are going to use my driveway to try to turn around and get in and out. I'm going to have difficulty backing out if my wife and I are walking to dinner at night and we come back in the alley and there's enhanced traffic there that creates an additional safety risk. So while the prior speakers who are encouraging increased use in the alley, that's a non-starter. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I do think that the proposed project needs to be modified, even with the entrance through 2nd Street as proposed, in order to take into account and address what can be done to mitigate the potential impact on the alley, primarily by virtue of the fact that 4 of those residences will have their entrance on the alley itself. So I think that's the defect in the way the current project has been designed. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Hi, Joy Howell, and I live at 25 Northwest 24th Court. And greetings to all of you, including Mr. Bennett and Ms. Miller. I was recently on the Planning and Zoning Board for 4 years. I miss you guys. Anyway, I'm here tonight to talk about this Palm Trail adjacent building. I do own property in this area, in the Palm Trail area right around the corner, about a block down. And I just happen to think that this design is more suitable for something that's not abutting a residential neighborhood. It looks more like a medical building, an office building, or something. So I guess I have to, if I put my objections in a category, I'll object to the lack of to the waiver of the setback. I personally think we've got other examples of taller buildings in the area. The one where those trees are, which is actually the 3-story townhouse development, that is a nice example in some ways of somebody who did set back the 3rd floor. There's other better examples in the neighborhood, and I'm not opposed to redevelopment. In fact, when we bought there 9 years ago, there were hypodermic needles on 7th Avenue in front of our places. That's just 9 years ago. So it's great that developers are coming in and giving some creative thought. However, I do think this particular design adversely affects the pedestrian experience. And there was a mention of the DDA voting in favor of this, but I want to call your attention to their comment, which was, quote, that the architectural features of the building should be reviewed to allow for a lighter look, use of more greenery features, and opt for a more tropical modern style. I couldn't agree more. We are losing our tree canopy with this development. And for some reason in town, we can't seem to solve this problem. We lose our tree canopy, and then developers pay into the in lieu tree fund, which is now hundreds of thousands of dollars. And those trees are usually given in other areas of the town, not to the neighborhood losing its tree canopy. So I urge you to think, streetscape means greenscape. Can we do a better job of this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Know how to do this, thanks. Hi, I'm sorry, I didn't get sworn in. Thank you. Hi.
If there's anybody else that might want to speak and you haven't been sworn in, go ahead and do it now. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine. It's
I
not a
should have
problem.
done that, but it's my first time.
And by the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Cynthia Lloyd, and I live at 239 Northeast 7th Avenue, and I really appreciate the opportunity. This is my very first meeting here, though I've been a resident for 3 years. I was on planning and zoning in my original place in St. Louis, Missouri, so I get the balance. I just wanted to say a few things that struck me in this meeting tonight. So I would agree, it's not the edge of Pineapple Grove. That's really further back. It really is Palm Trail. And the reason why that matters is there are a lot of us who are fine with development because we live in homes that have been developed. But at the same time, we did move into a community because we wanted to live in a village by the sea. If I wanted to live in Boca, I would have chosen Boca. So I'm a little bit concerned about that sensitivity holding, and I think it's important. You're right, the world's changing, but at some point. So I respected hearing that there was this discussion with staff and with firefighters and policemen, and here's what I would say, where's the study? Where's the information? I mean, we can all say, I feel this will be okay. What I want to know is, where's the study? Where's the study from the police saying this will be the safer way to go? Because here's what I would submit. My brother-in-law lives along the alley, and he uses the entrance all the time. And he had a moving truck, and if there was a fire there one time, and they got in. So I'm concerned when I hear about feelings and thoughts, because in the end, the people who really have to deal with that are the people that invested to live here in this village by the sea. Not Boca, but Delray. So that's really important. The other thing is, I'll just kind of add on, the issue with taking into account what happens with waivers. I've heard it said several times by the applicant, well, this has been done before. So it really is about setting precedent, because that will be used when somebody wants to do what they want to do. So I would like to know, does staff ever come out to the neighborhood and really talk to the people and look at what's going on? Because it is going to affect a really big neighborhood, not a small, but a big neighborhood. So I just think there's some value in a little bit more concrete before big decisions are made. And I'll close with this, really respectfully. So it may sound harsh, it wasn't my intent. But we really have had a lot of trees cut down since we bought our house. Now the streets flood, there's no wind, the wind shear is terrible. And I just think that, again, when decisions are taken and waivers are given, the impact is more significant than you may think. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, does the applicant have any rebuttal statements?
So, Chair, just briefly, maybe help cut on some rebuttal. Certain aspects of this plan are not before you. So the architectural elevations, density, massing, some of those aspects, because this is just a recommendation on the waivers. So those functionality aspects of the shifting of the connection point and, you know, those aspects of the site plan that involve the pedestrian experience, you know, those are should be discussed and are within your purview. But some of the things are, like I said, architecture, density, massing, things like those really aren't appropriate for the discussion tonight. They will eventually make its way back around as an official site plan. At that time, the appropriate board will review those aspects.
Thank you.
Sure. Just to go, I don't know how to get back to my slides.
Yeah, Susie, if you can pull up our presentation.
Ms. Blinky, do you anticipate having any cross-examination or just be rebuttal?
Just rebuttal, I believe.
So what this slide indicates is the existing condition. The existing condition has two major curb cuts on Northeast 2nd in this property. We are reducing it to one. We are making it better condition. If this site was activated with the businesses and the residents, you would have 3 times the amount of traffic entering and egressing this site as this development proposes. So to be an engineer and stand up here and say that the one curb cut is decreasing the pedestrian experience when right now half the site is
Excuse
a curb
me,
cut.
sir. The comments need to be directed towards
Yes.
the board.
What-
Thank
so
you.
so
Could I respond? There's nobody there. These are empty buildings, so you're not reducing.
At this time, it's applicant's rebuttal period.
So the buildings presently are vacated because the developer chose to vacate them. They could very easily be reactivated, and that activation would cause a significant increase in traffic over the proposed development. So we have an existing curb cut which is right on the corner, which gives no stacking. The proposed development gives stacking at the corner to present a safer condition. Secondly, I don't know how to zoom in. You do, Christina.
Where are you zooming to?
Going to the center photograph, the existing cartway of the alley is 12'7" wide. It is not wide enough to handle vehicular traffic in a two-way direction. How do I go to the next slide, the next picture? So zoom in on the photographs. So this is the depiction of the alley or the way. This is my truck pulled hard against the vegetation of the development next to us. There's 4 foot between my car and the cartway. It is impossible for a normal driver to drive down this access way. If a vehicle breaks down, the whole development would be closed until the vehicle is moved. Secondly, this alley is also serviced by Delray Water. Here is the truck park. It takes the entire alley. How can people living in a development access? It's an undersized alley. Furthermore, we ran traffic analysis of turning radius of fire apparatus, and emergency vehicles cannot get into the alley. There's existing light poles which minimize that. We can go to the turning radiuses. They're at the end of the presentation. You cannot get emergency vehicles down this alley without jockeying them around. And in the case of an emergency, time is of the essence. These vehicles cannot access this alley. Secondly, or lastly, alley systems traditionally throughout the United States, when they're incorporated into any planning of any town, are used specifically for associate uses, not as major vehicular access points. They're used for trash, they're used for deliveries. They are never used as a singular point of access to a development.
And the only other point I wanted to add to that is obviously Federal Highway is a state road. It's FDOT that controls that road. We did again try to secure access off Federal Highway. That was denied. We then showed FDOT the proposed plan with the access off Northeast 2nd Street, and they obviously review it for safety, for potential impacts or issues, and we do have an FDOT approval letter for our access point set back. I believe it's 40 feet from the property line, so that is, I believe, part of the city's file as well. But FDOT has reviewed this access and confirmed that it is an acceptable access from a safety standard as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are we about to rebut the rebuttal, which contained inaccurate information?
So generally speaking, the way the process works, after public comment, the applicant and the staff are presented the opportunity to present rebuttal evidence. The next step after that would be the board discussion. It's up to the board whether they decide to reopen public comment, but generally speaking, it's not something that the board considers doing.
I will also like to note that our technical advisory committee did review the site plan. The site plan is still currently being reviewed. This is only for the waivers, but fire and police are included in the technical advisory committee. And based on the last resubmittal, there were no comments from fire and police. However, when there is a resubmittal and any revisions, comments may come, but that is to know. And also the property is also dedicating 2 feet of the right-of-way for the alley. And to note, the property adjacent to the east also has a 2-foot dedication. So up until this point, it is 20 feet, and then it goes back to 18 feet, and then it goes back to 16 feet. So it will narrow the alley back. It only has the dedication up into to a certain point.
Okay. Mr. Alvarez?
You again?
Yes. Sorry.
So I guess in terms of the access waiver, I'm a little conflicted with it in the sense that it's moving the access way onto a primary street, but I look at the development to the south, and they're accessing directly onto like the connections directly onto Federal Highway, which to me this seems like a better alternative. And at the same time, yes, it's not ideal to have the traffic going crossing the sidewalk. But I also look at the scale of the development. It's 8 units, and I forget the numbers of the amount of trips, but it seemed pretty nominal to me in terms of the amount of trips that would cross that sidewalk in any given day. So I'm a little bit on the fence on it. Does moving the access 40 feet to the east really make that big of an impact? I'm not certain. You're still going to have the same amount of traffic, just 40 feet east. So it, I guess I'm on the fence on that one.
Ms. Prudo? I'm more concerned with the alley situation than the new cut for the new driveway into the project. I don't think that, I don't think it's conducive to the neighborhood to have that as a major traffic area, which it would be if that was the front door for the, I'm not sure what that the easternmost building, I guess. And then the other concern that I have with the waiver, and just in waivers in general, is that if we give the waiver for the setback for the first floor, the waiver stays with the property, not with the design of the building, right?
No, the waiver would be project specific. Variances are the ones that run with the land.
Oh, okay, all right, well then, thanks for clearing that up, yeah, because, yeah, I mean, to me, the building's too massive, but the waiver itself has nothing to do with that, so, I don't have a problem with it.
Mr. Nelson?
So I'll address them separately, I guess. The easement on the corner, that one, for me, I don't see as significant one way or the other. That foot traffic there isn't going to really be affected by that, I suppose. I more so am concerned about the property going, the parking. That section of Second going into the residential area there, I'm very familiar with. That's already one of those intersections where the traffic versus the light speed versus the people that are crazily driving down Federal Highway, that to me would be my point of concern on this, on the waiver for this. That's a perception version of being familiar with that part of this, of Delray. I happened to live for 4 years a block and a half away from that. I currently don't live there because it was so hard to get home because of this. So that's kind of one of those ones where I'm also on the fence with, because I think there isn't a great solution for this if you can't get the access off of Federal, which I don't think you'd probably want anyways because those people are driving like crazy. I just don't know that there's a better solution for this if the alley is not conducive for it. I guess those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've heard the comments of the applicant and the comments of the neighbors, and these are just recommendations.
Correct. So, this is not a final action. That will be City Commission.
You know, I'm going to recommend that we do not accept both waivers. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's, you know, every time you give the direction about waivers and the design, I'm a little thrown because I understand what you say, but when the applicant comes in and requests the waiver based on the design, it's quite challenging for us. I'm with Mr. Cohen on this one. I do think it's a hardship imposed by the design. So I'm not inclined to recommend either recommendations for a waiver at this time. Those are my comments. And can I get a motion or a recommendation or consensus? What are we doing?
And my question is, do we do them together or separate?
There'll be two separate motions.
All right, I move to recommend denial to the City Commission of the waiver request for the edge of Pineapple Grove at 605 Northeast 2nd Street, 2022-008 to allow vehicular access from Northeast 2nd Street, a primary street, by finding that the request does not meet the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
And question, in this...
Give the second for discussion. Will you second for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Just if we agree with the request for the waiver, but it's currently being moved for denial, we would not agree with the motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you believe that it met the land development regulations, it would be a no on the motion to recommend denial, yes.
All right, can you call roll, please?
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
No.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
Yes.
Again?
Yes, second.
Move to recommend denial to the City Commission of the waiver request for the edge of Pineapple Grove at 605 Northeast Second Street, 2022-008, to reduce the front setback requirements from 10 feet to approximately 3 feet and 6 inches for the second and third floors, and limited to the corner of, at the intersection of Northeast 6th Avenue and Northeast Second Street per sheet A dot 100, by finding that the request does not meet the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
I have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Call roll, please.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Keith Beal is absent, Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Dana Adler is absent, Adam Nelson.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. Item number 10, do we have any reports or comments by staff?
Yes, I would just like to remind the board with the upcoming meetings. Usually the SPRAB meetings are taking place on the fourth Wednesday of the month, but because of the holidays, November and December meetings are different. So the December meeting is on the second Wednesday. The upcoming is on the 13th.
Excuse me, would you mind taking that outside?
And the January meeting is on the 24th. Also, I would like to highlight that by the next meeting, we will have a package of the CBD architecture, CBD regulations prepared and ready for distribution. And for those who are continuing with us, we're happy to update your package if you have it, or prepare another one if you don't have. We also provided today the architecture design guidelines for the CBD, because the CBD is part of the responsibilities of appeals to architectural design guidelines, part of the responsibility of this board. I also have a presentation for the board responsibilities based on the recently adopted amendment on October 17th, ready for the board at your request. I can do this today. Also, at any time, please feel free. I'm the board liaison. Just feel free to reach me by email, by phone, just for any concern or a question about agenda or anything. I'm ready if you are.
Any thoughts?
I have to go.
Yes, to leave, maybe the next meeting?
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Can you do it next?
Of course. So the December 13th, then we can do, and we also can distribute the package. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any attorney thoughts?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Good evening, Board. I didn't formally introduce myself yet. This is William Bennett. I'm an Assistant City Attorney with the City Attorney's Office. As you probably picked up from tonight, generally, I'll be here and helping guiding your conversations and trying to help you navigate land development regulations, keep our conversation on task. I want to welcome Mr. Alvarez and Mr. Nelson to the board. I look forward to meeting Mr. Beal hopefully in December. I also want to introduce Ms. Daniela Vega, who's been in the audience all night. She is the newest attorney with our office, so you may see her in the future as well if I have other obligations. There will be a formal board member training video. Currently, the city attorney, Ms. Jellin, and Development Services Director, Ms. Gianotis, are working on creating that video, so it's something you can watch. It'll be sent out when it's done. But there's two important items I'd like to touch on before you get that formal training. First is the one we call sunshine. So you are prohibited from discussing business that might come before the board with your other board members unless it's in a public meeting. So you're more than welcome to converse with each other, say hello if you run into each other. Just don't talk about anything that might come before the site plan review and appearance board. The other item is public records. So any document you create, email, text, even if you don't send it, potentially draft an email, if it's done in the furtherance of your position on this board, it's a public record. Whether it's your personal cell phone or your personal email address, those are public records. That is something that the public can request. So I would really encourage you to make sure that you have access to your city email address. If you do not, contact your liaison, and they'll put you in contact with IT. All of you live or work in this city, or maybe both. So I'm sure that there will be members of the public that may email your personal email address because they have it. If that occurs, just forward it to your City of Delray Beach email so we have access to it if it's needed. Then the last item, just a reminder, if you've not done so, you need to complete your ethics training. For those of you that are returning board members, that training is good for 2 years. So if you're not sure if you've done it in the last 2 years, again, contact your liaison or the city clerk's office and just make sure that you've provided whatever paperwork they may need to confirm that you're current on your ethics training. That's it from me, Chair. Thank you.
I thank you. Any board member comments?
I do have a quick question, and I don't know if this is the right forum, but I believe that based on the latest ordinances that were passed, is the purview of SPRAB changing, meaning the type of applications that we're evaluating and the type of projects?
So we have an excellent presentation that if
That's
you'd like
gonna
to
be
see
that.
it.
Okay.
The short answer to the question is yes. The Chapter 2 amendments were made to try to achieve a holistic, streamlined review. So some projects that might have been reviewed by SPRAB might now go to PZB. Some projects that might have been PZB might go to SPRAB. But the goal was so that tonight, like, you had a waiver, but you didn't have a site plan. So the goal will be in the future with these projects, most of them should come as one package. So it'd be a waiver with the site plan. You're potentially looking at everything at once and not having this piecemeal or disjointed review.
Understood. Thank you.
CBD will remain the same, so you still will see this type of application where CBD, we specifically kept it that way so that CBD waivers will come to you for analysis before going to City Commission, and then if those are approved, then the site plan would travel. So that will still remain the same, and that was done purposefully.
Two-step process, okay. Any other board member comments? All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn it. Thank you, you made it.
I know.
All right, see you later.